Alright, now it's time to flash the device. Now, I'm going to show you the process for installing on Windows because that's what I have and use, but the instructions for installing on Mac and Linux are pretty straightforward and readily available from Intel. It's just a few steps here that I'll show you, and then we'll walk through the whole thing in the upcoming demo. Hopefully by seeing the steps on slides and then watching me do it later, it'll be clear for you. The first thing we need to do is install a couple of drivers. First, we download and install the FTDI drivers. FTDI is the company that makes the chip on the Edison that allows you to connect to it by way of USB. So you need these drivers from the get-go to get connected to your board. You find these drivers at ftdichip.com, specifically at ftdichip.com/drivers/d2xx.htm. Now, as of this recording, the latest version of the driver that you should look for is called the 2.12.00 WHQL certified. Installation of this driver is pretty straightforward, and I don't expect that you'll run into any surprises. Next, you need a driver pack from Intel. This pack includes drivers for RNDIS, CDC, and DFU. Well, that's a mouthful, and you might be wondering what all those things stand for. RNDIS is for Virtual Ethernet over USB. CDC is a standard for recognizing and communicating with devices, and DFU is functionality for updating firmware on devices. So it's just a few utilities that we need to manage the device when it's connected to your computer. The latest version of these drivers can be found on Intel's software download page for the Edison, and you can find that by simply searching the internet for Intel Edison software downloads. When you get to that page, you'll see offers to download the integrated installer, the SDK, the Intel IoT Developer Kit, and the Intel Arduino IDE. But the way that we're going to be developing on the Edison, you don't need any of that. So just find, download, and install the Windows standalone driver at version 1.2.1 as of this recording. You know what? While we're at it, let's just make sure you have one more thing installed on your computer. Bonjour is Apple's implementation of something called Zero Configuration, or MDNS. In our case here, it's going to allow us to reference our Edison by its name.local. If you call your Edison George, then its host name will simply be george.local. This means you don't have to hassle with discovering, remembering, and typing whatever IP address George gets assigned, and that's quite nice. The URL to get to the download page is complex, so just search for Bonjour Print Services for Windows, and you should land on a page that looks like this one. With the Edison plugged into your computer and these drivers installed, you should see that a new lettered drive has appeared in Windows. This drive is not the Edison's primary file system. It's just a location that it's going to look in for flash files. So let's copy the flash files over. To download the latest image, you need to go back to Intel's software download page for the Edison. This is the exact URL. But to spare yourself, again, you can just find it by searching the internet for Intel Edison software downloads. Next, go to bit.ly/puttydownload and download and install either PuTTY or P-Link. They're the same program, and they allow you to connect to something over a serial connection. PuTTY, though, has a UI, but P-Link is the command line tool. I like to use P-Link and stay on the command line personally. Now, the serial connection requires the USB cable that's toward the outside of the Arduino board that you likely already have plugged in. Once you've got a serial connection, you can commence to flash your device with a single command, reboot OTA. Don't worry about remembering that. We'll see it again in a little bit when we get into the demo. One of the advantages to having a serial connection to your device is that you'll be able to see all the low-level stuff that scrolls by the screen as the actual flash is occurring. What's actually being installed is the Yocto distribution of Linux. So it's kind of a custom distribution of Linux that's made for tiny devices, embedded devices, things like that. And that's what Intel has chosen to be the default image for this device. Now, when the flash is done, you'll be taken to a login screen, and you can simply log in as root with no password, and you'll be transported to the Linux prompt. There you are, full of possibilities. Now you simply type configure_Edison space -- setup at the prompt, and you'll be walked through a wizard to configure your device. We'll choose a name, a password, and a Wi-Fi hotspot.